Okay, today's question is, when it comes to dating slash marriage, do you consider race or tribe?
No. Next question.
So you just full of answers.
What the hell are you saying?
Race.
I mean, some
You
people
should
do,
add like
but that's you.
Race
yeah,
and tribe.
religion.
But-
You don't want to
No,
mix the
season 2,
conversation.
season 2. Religion's a whole other,
Race and tribe.
yes.
Tribe, I don't.
Let's start with
Tribe, I
race.
don't. Except for what did I know? Or curious, you know,
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
No, you're saying you heard.
What I heard was
when it happened.
that there's a stereotype that, well, personally, I don't look at tribe, but I've
stereotype stuck
heard.
out.
Yes, specifically, yeah, that Wakuria, they like
Wife
beat
beaters.
on their wives, and the wife, but it's like a culture thing where the women want their husbands to beat them because it's the way they show love.
I've heard of that before.
I don't know
yeah.
if it's true or not,
So
but
is it like a
that's
kiss
just
on
something
the
that's always
forehead?
stuck out. Huh?
It's like
I've
prefer
heard
the
that
kiss
before.
on the forehead.
Old thing.
Yeah, maybe it is.
Maybe it's still
I've
there.
heard the
Maybe
same
it's
thing.
because we're in this what mjini unasema.
But wait, we
Urban-
have
urban
Yeah.
examples.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I,
by
I
all
mean,
means-
you guys have
First time
never
I'm
heard
hearing,
that
but I don't
stereotype,
know.
or no?
My dad's in Korea and my mom's in Chica from Uganda. My dad, they all, I've never heard of that. Or
Yeah.
experienced.
You
That's
haven't
in
No,
my
I've heard of
family.
it, but I look at my family. Yeah, my dad's in Korea, and my mom's half Rwandese, half Tanzanian, which makes my dad was the most politest person ever. As in, actually, sometimes I get
Same.
scared because
My
he's.
dad's super chill.
Maybe
I
that's
mean,
why
there's
they
some
moved here.
exceptions, you know. There's some exceptions to
But
the
I can
rule.
see that.
No, okay, no, but
I'm trying to find links.
no, but the difference is, they both grew up in the village, and for
Look, it wouldn't
them,
be
the
funny if
town
you
move
didn't
was a very big move, and he met her in town during his first job, and they went on now into having a relationship and growing up. But every time you talk to my mom about my dad, she's like, "Oh, he's the sweetest guy ever." But dad didn't speak that much. When he married, she just gonna look at you like, "That was some awkward. We're gonna talk about it later." But generally, him even raising his voice, never.
Same.
As in, I think like, I don't scream at people generally. I get mad at you, but if I get mad at you, it's generally going to be a conversation. You're not going to be too happy about it. But he had the same manner. Never been beaten by him. Oh, yeah, been once with me and my brother. Just had to steal the car, but that was a different conversation.
Deserve that.
You asked for that one.
But generally, when he has a talk with you, you will generally feel bad. But him and my mom, as in arguments, were never even in the house. And then it'll be like separate room. Oh, we're going for dinner. You kids, wait for us. We'll be back. And I think that's the most confrontation I've ever seen with them.
Right.
And I know the stereotype is there that all Korean men are wife beaters.
I hadn't
Which
heard
just
of it
shows
before
that
today.
it's a
so-
Are you serious?
I hadn't.
Really?
So
So there's
I
everything. I
hadn't.
think maybe in the
It's a
rural
bit-
areas.
in the
maybe.
rural
areas,
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
louder.
Yeah.
Maybe in the rural, because I think every
Yeah.
tribe has that bad
But we're known
stereotype,
for
but it's usually in the rural
arguments.
areas.
There's like a bunch of there's
Yeah.
those stereotypes, and then it's like, you know, when people like make jokes like, I don't know, like kama kuna mchawi in the family, or you get like Wakuria and they come in with this virungu and like, yeah, they just like come in and they would be like bam to whoever's in the house, or like if he has brothers, and if like you were married and you passed away, and then your brother would have to marry.
Yeah, but
your
those
wife.
are there.
No, like,
Ah.
Some
and the
tribes.
wife has no say, and your brother has no say. Like,
Yeah.
even if you have another wife, you have to marry that wife, and you have to consummate the marriage.
Isn't that about like land?
I think
and-
even
like-
higher
the wealthy
thing,
one,
yeah,
actually.
Yeah,
like if
also.
you,
That
actually
happens
the
sometimes.
higher have a thing on the any lady is not supposed to eat boiled eggs or like eggs in general because they might give birth to a bald kid for the entire life.
In what
It's like-
tribe?
it's
What
legit.
tribe is it?
It's legit.
In what tribe?
Or higher. I was talking to my dad like at this one time, but, like, and it's still there in the rural areas though. Like some women at like home kabisa kule kijijini, they don't eat eggs at all. Like some at this year they not eat eggs. And the other one of a woman should not eat fish. Everything is about
I was gonna say,
women,
all I've been
suppressing
told,
women and
even by my
everything.
mom, is higher men are very loose. So.
And there's that a stereotype of
And
a
I'm
higher
half
being
higher,
like
so.
cheaters, like
Yeah,
But-
that one.
Yeah.
That's
What was
that's
the
what I've been
question?
warned
But
about.
isn't it
But-
very different because
Yeah.
right now we're talking about stereotypes, but
Yeah.
mostly it should be about tradition, and that highly for most of us will affect us because when you're thinking about marriage, you're looking at it as I'm marrying into another tradition, and you
Yeah.
do not
Into
know
our
what kind of
family, yeah.
what kind of
Exactly.
balance they have, and generally in African tradition, you're marrying into this guy's family. They're going to take
Generally,
you in, and you do not know what kind of tradition.
And
you're
the other way
about to
around,
bring
No,
in.
the other way
that
around,
just
yeah.
depends on what
Yeah.
culture you come from, whether it's matrilineal or patrilineal.
But-
I
Yeah,
come
the
from a
same, yeah.
matrilineal
So,
culture, and in many ways I can say my father married into my mother's family.
And
But
in
for
he had to
a
take in a lot of
way,
values.
many
The
ways.
majority of
He
it
had
is
taken a
usually
lot of what that came into, what he was coming into, as in a lot more.
Well, yeah, he came from a matrilineal culture too, because like you know, like Morogoro, like southern bits are more matrilineal, and then
Oluguru.
yeah, Waluguru, but also yeah, like just in general, and then northern areas are more patrilineal culture. So like, and also the whole coastal region is matrilineal,
Yeah.
and in a way, it's also kind of like. Again, it was like keeping the wealth in the family because, like, even if I gave birth, my child is more my brother's child than he is my husband's child because there is no way of proving that he is my husband's child, but we know for sure that he is my brother's blood.
Well, now we have
And
DNA
so-
test, but back in
yeah.
As
Yeah.
well.
So,
But that does affect most of our marriage, and we try and
our
intermingle,
tribe, yeah.
especially during like you go to weddings in today's day and time. You find your folks bring their tradition, her folks bring their
Yeah.
tradition, and you
Yeah.
try and find a common ground.
Yeah.
Usually, it's never you never get to 50-50, but it's a common ground that we can all
So
relate.
usually a little more on his side.
Yeah, in this,
not 'cause
I
you're
think
one
it
being
will change
given
like
away,
with a time, but on a personal level, I don't really care about
Consider
the
tribe.
race or tribe, but I know
Even
my
race.
family does. Like race, it doesn't. I mean, if you love somebody, really, I think we might say I won't do. I don't know why women, Chinese, whatever it is, but you meet this guy or like girl, and then everything just changes. Like you know.
What about, do
So-
you consider what your family will think when it comes to race? Interracial.
I'll take that into like advisement, like about our
I heard you, Mama do me.
yeah, because I mean, unless it is something like you know what, most of the time maybe usually my mom usually tells me don't date this girl because maybe she got like a vibe, like a bad vibe off of her, like you know I don't think it's one for you, but I don't think they'll actually don't date her because she's black or white. No, I'm talking about my. Yeah, like they'll like because actually my mom would be like, "Upata mzungu," like she'll be like that. Like she won't be like, "Why do you have like a?"
She wouldn't condemn it.
Yeah, my dad would care less about me who wants it. So be like whatever you wanna do, you do. But I think that tribe part, he's more intent on that. Whatever you do,
Don't be with.
the last name has to be Utageruka for him.
Oh.
Yeah, like that he takes that seriously. Like
You
like
have to pass on the name.
you have to pass on. If it's not the wife, then at least the kids. Like you have to pass on. So that is something that I do hope that the wife at the time would. It's something to talk about, obviously, and I just hope she would. It's not fair, obviously.
What about if she throws in the will in the spanner and just tells you, well, your name is Rutagaruka, her name is Seronga, I want to be called Melissa Seronga Rutagaruka.
Yes, no, as long as the
And then
passport
you
also
also
says
the
that.
name.
Sorry.
You say you put up the name, you call
It would be
her
really long. Girl.
Seronga Rutagaruka.
That's actually very interesting. I didn't think of that part. Yeah. Can you?
Yeah.
Somebody
I was gonna say that I actually think I have the opposite. So when I was younger, just like even like a couple 2 years ago, I used to think, I don't care about tribe or race. It doesn't matter. Love is love, and you're just gonna make it work. But as you get older and you get into relationships, you do start to realize that actually things like traditions and cultures being aligned, because culture is also about values. So even something like a name, that's a higher tradition that's important to you and your family, or at least that's something you're going to consider. But you can meet someone from another culture who they see that as sexist, for instance. And fundamentally for them, they're like, why do I need to take your last name? So things like that do start to matter. You start to recognize that, yes, tribes and even race, there's a lot of cultural things
Mhm.
that can actually affect your relationship.
And even worse when you're thinking about, because it can be like, oh yeah,
Children.
between me and you, we can make it work.
Yeah.
And then like, and we always talk, when you're in love, you always talk about this like, oh, we'll have children as this hypothetical thing.
Yeah.
And when you actually start talking about when you have children, and then
Yeah.
there'll be that comment of like, oh yeah, and then like on Sunday days of like blah blah blah, they'll do this in church, and you're like, church, what?
Yeah.
I've never actually thought my kids were, I don't see that happening, and that's something so important to this other person. So
Yeah.
I thought
definitely
the question was, let's say if maybe you have something against Kamawa Akuria or whatever, like you
No.
generally will not
No.
know.
Do you
No,
think
no, that's not
about
the
race?
question.
Selection.
Sorry?
Do you think about race and tribe when you're dating and when you want to get married?
It's not
Like,
like
do
as
you
a
consider it?
stereotypical way,
Yeah.
but it's like, are
Yeah.
these things that are a factor?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that when you're starting, obviously you don't know the Akuria stuff maybe, and then when you find out as you're
No.
right, because there are some stuff. Let's say
Yeah.
I'm giving you a scenario. What if let's say you two are nanny, right, and then with time you found out some more stuff about the Akuria stuff that they do not go with your
But here's
beliefs,
the
whatever it
thing:
is.
it doesn't matter as long as that's like, for instance, if we're gonna go with like the wife beater thing, it wouldn't matter because it's a stereotype. It would only come to matter if that was a tradition that he practiced. Then we have a problem. But if it's just a hypothetical thing about his people, but that's not.
I feel like that could be that could, as in race and tribe,
Yeah,
do
obviously, yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like we as millennials do not follow that so much, but our
Yeah.
parents do,
Yeah.
and we're still not far from them.
Mm.
To decide ourselves that we know we cannot do that, we're not going to do that. So right now, most of us are compromising on a lot of things that we do, because when you start off, you're like, okay, I'm in love, I love this woman and all that. But as you start getting serious, you now have to dwell with the other side of the family, which now you're getting integrated into her life. And there are things that might catch you off guard as you go along. And usually they catch you off guard between the two things. It's either race and tribe. And mingling the two is hard. You might think about it, easily maybe and just say it's race and maybe, she's white, she's from, England, and maybe their traditions are not that much. But she also has things that they do as them. They're like, oh, maybe we don't give out. We don't ask for dowry. But your folks are adamant on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's this,
They're like, we have to go and discuss this with the parents. We have to give dowry because she has to come to us, not the other way around. She has to take our name. Our folks maybe are not like that. Folks are like, well, we don't do that in England. We don't do that in Norway. We don't do that here. Or maybe our tradition is very much reunion. And why don't you pick up a name? Why don't you be more like us? Why don't you come to us? There's some traditions in Kenya whereby you have to build a house on the folks' side and on your side. And constantly go visit.
Yeah, because a lot of
Then you have
the
no business
issues, a lot of the issues in relationships have nothing to do with the two people and how you feel about each other. It's all the
Exactly,
external
yeah.
factors.
Yeah.
Which is why I
You're
asked about,
married
do you
into
consider your
a
family?
But going back to you mentioned something interesting when you said that us as like millennials, and a lot of things that we compromise because our families, our parents are wanting those things, and I'm just wondering whether is this a generational thing or an age thing? Because when you go back to when our parents were our age, they were doing the same thing
Yeah,
in
if
many
not
ways that
more.
we're doing now. They were fighting for this other, I mean, I know with my parents had to fight to be together just simply because my dad was Mbara. Like that's actually, he was Muslim, everything religious, but he was black. He's Mbara. And this is some Zanzibari, well, they value Warabu and whatever, and that was to them like, my mother has gone like,
Rogue.
you have done the worst thing you could possibly do in the world, And it happened, but, at the time, that was like that big fight. And so I'm wondering whether it's like, is it right to say like, oh, us as millennials are just, when we're young, we think of these things in this way.
Okay. Why I said millennials it's actually very good because I say it as millennials because I feel like this is time for change. You're the only guys who will have the most impact across a lot of issues. And this is one of the biggest ones. in terms of race, tribe, religion. I feel like the boundaries will break down during our times.
Yeah.
Before it was a harder struggle. I feel like before it was, you were actually ousted out and be like, oh yeah, she married into so and so, or he married that woman, and you pretty much did not have that kind of support system to take it on for. But now as millennials, you do have that kind of support. We are much more open towards it. A lot of your friends or your social circles are much more open to a lot of ideas that you have, or a lot of ideologies that you have. Before it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And that is, for me, I think it's the best time to be living in, because before I don't think we'd have done a lot more. But for now, I think the barriers are there to be broken for us, and I think they are. It's been proven across not only race and tribe, but it's been proven in our work careers. Women are getting more rights. I feel like women are fighting much harder, and men in the next couple of years will have a harder holding ground in terms of wanting to get same, or even trying to move up. Because we've been complacent for so long that none of us have thought of it like, oh, what if when it's equal? Are we gonna have the same, punching rights as we go along? Because we've been relaxed for so long, and I don't think we might be able to compete at that time when women are actually up front.
For sure.
So it's the same thing with tribe and race. It's that time when a lot more men will also get very uncomfortable, because a lot of things will open up, kind of wormholes, and you'll be like, well, but so and so's done it.
Yeah.
This has happened. It worked out for them. Why can we make it work? And those are the kind of questions that need to be addressed right now.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit more now about race?
Yes.
And if
I'd
race
like to.
matters?
Has anyone here tried
Yeah.
interracial dating?
Try it, fair.
Yep.
Tried and failed.
I didn't approach
Yeah.
you that now. So.
Yeah.
So-
I consider myself the United Nations.
No.
I don't discriminate. All 54
endorse this
continents of
message.
Africa. No, like I've been in a couple of interracial relationships, and I will say that once again, when I was younger, I didn't care, with the color of anyone's skin, whatever. If you were hot, I say until today, like, my type is fine. It doesn't matter, but especially in our current political climate, like the past couple of years, like the past 2 years or so, I lived in the US for a bit. Race has started to kind of really matter when I meet people. Like, I'm just putting it out there, like, I give white people, like, the side eye. I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting. When you're like, like, you're still a person, and I'm getting to know you, but I'm just waiting for you
For that
to
moment
like,
where you're like,
try to say, I'm gonna play niggas in Paris and see. Are you gonna get that word? I want to see. Like, I had a very interesting conversation with a guy at some point this weekend, and basically we were talking about the N-word, and he told me, I told you guys the story, and he feels like he's never said it, and he
White
feels,
guy.
yes, he's white, but he feels no one should say it, and I'm like, black people, history, context, whatever. But then he was like, it's just a bad word. I don't think anyone should say it. And it reminds me of like when people call me mzungu, it's like offensive. And I was like, it was kind of one of those very white person feelings that, I would never have that type of situation with a black man. There are just certain things with your own people that you don't have to explain, and you're just the train of thought.
Yeah.
Whereas, so in interracial relationships, sometimes there's just going to be a lot of I have had a lot of very uncomfortable conversations or just moments where you're like, wow.
There's just a lot of teaching that you have to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of teaching because it's about privilege. Race is about privilege. It's about power. There's histories there. There are a lot of things. You have to be patient because there are a lot of things that they may not know. Things about your hair, there's so much that you have to be even more vulnerable than I feel like you would be with a relationship with a black man who's used to being with black women and who knows the struggle and,
But could that be something that we go in as black people with already like high defenses?
Yeah.
We have to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
maybe
you
no,
loosen up.
but the thing is, like, I feel like maybe because relationships aren't meant to be that way. And if like, yeah, with your own person, it starts off organically, it's going to start off of that foundation is what's going to inspire interactions and everything and all this comfort and like not being able to teach them. But I feel like if you go in without defenses high and just understand, yes, this is the situation in the world, and yes, I'll have to teach a lot of things and you'll say a lot of insensitive things, and necessarily because you intend to offend me, right? But if you already have that mentality, it might not be so like, I don't know, like so hard. Because in a way, you know, when you go in with that mentality where your defenses aren't up, you actually realize that there's a lot that you also don't know.
Absolutely.
You know, about this other race.
Yeah.
And I think that's the issue also with the majority and this whole minority thing, where obviously we've grown up, mainstream has been, you know, the white culture, Europeans, Western, whatever. But, you know, with individual families and things, and whenever we let our defenses down and find out very specific things about people, you can, you know, you can be surprised with like, why even they got interested in you to begin with, and the families they come from, and you know, even what they studied and what they choose to do with their life, and yes, there is that big gap, but maybe it's just a matter of like going with a different perspective. There's obviously things like that. Comparing nigger and mzungwa is like
Ridiculous.
it's ridiculous,
If you're watching, that's ridiculous.
and you know, it's something that they might also like.
Let's not.
It's something that might also like, you know, when you're in a relationship, you learn a lot about each other, and it stops becoming about this like big things about race and whatnot, and it becomes just about this person. So he might still not even understand like issues in general, like, oh yeah, like black hair. He might not even be able to understand that in general, but he knows that you like shea moisture. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, it's like little things that are like between two human beings, and like I think we both people have to be of that mindset going in, because and I think of really successful interracial marriages, I've noticed that this is the one difference, is like these people are very like, there have been no difference. Like, we all know. We know what our history is. We know your people did this to my people. But that's not you, and it's not me. And there's a lot we don't know about each other, me and you. So let's just start there.
There's an
me
openness
and you. You
to
know?
learning.
Yeah, there's an openness to learning. And
I think there's some stuff like using N-word and Mzungu. You don't really have to get it, but I just respect it. You know, if you don't understand it, then it's fair. Maybe to you Mzungu, and if you feel that I can call you Mzungu, I also have to respect that too, because it's not the same thing, obviously. But if
you can compare with that
particular
example,
obviously,
I do
but
get the
personally,
like that,
personally, if you don't want me to quit a Mzungu or a crack or whatever they call Haniva, I won't call you that, because it's about you now, right? And I also tell you, this is not about me. It's about the whole race now. This Mzungu is about you.
It's about
fair.
teaching each other that.
But if you can reach at a level, okay, these are the ground rules, I guess, and whatever. But if you honestly don't understand it, then it's really fair. But just don't say it. Respect
it's true.
it. Yeah,
because
respect it.
even I one of my uncle married an American white woman, and she's been living here for now almost 10 years. And you know, we're really close. I go to her house all the time. But even I find myself actually sometimes when I say things like even when she brings it up as a joke, like recently one of my friends who I went to school with was going to Zanzibar with her family, and she was asking me about all these like restaurants she would go to in Stone Town, whatever. And so I asked my aunt, because they're always there, and I figured like the places that this girl would want to go to, because my aunt goes to, right? So I asked her, and she was like, oh, does she want to go to like, you know, like local places or Mzungu places? And I actually felt really awkward responding Mzungu places, not because it's like, you know, but it's just, I was like, oh, it's not what I meant. You know? Like, I wasn't trying to make you feel like, oh yeah, like, well, I'm different, you know, but you are, but like, you know, it's still that, you know, so, and it's not the same thing as nigga, for sure, but it's still, again, it's just looking at a person as a person, and so it's like, no,
which brings me to another point. I have become racially paranoid.
Yeah, I have to get
So,
up, girl. I can't.
Yeah, like these days, if I meet a guy who's not black, I have to figure out whether he wants me because I'm black or because he actually thinks I'm cute. Because there is like the black woman fetish that we deal with. because we're supposed to be like hypersexual and all this stuff.
It's like the black nigga thing.
Yeah, like the black man as well. Like
Yeah,
the-
exactly.
the
White
white
guy
Just
does
black,
that,
just black. and
Like
then black.
Lawrence, like
Just like-
Lawrence and Insecure.
Yeah,
like those
yeah,
two
yeah.
white
Those
girls
two white girls,
clearly
yeah,
get
yeah.
off on, you know, Mandingo.
Yeah, just
so
like-
I have to think about
Yeah.
things like that.
Like I was
Which
out
sucks.
last night and actually this white guy approached me and he said that to me. He said, "Oh, I love black girls."
I don't know what they're expecting. Why do
Yeah.
they say stuff
You know,
like that?
like-
Am I supposed to be flattered?
Because it becomes it's not at that moment it becomes about your race, your
Yes.
object,
Yeah, you
and not
made
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
You know, it's
So
Would
we have
you
to
be
do that.
as offended if like, where kabila gani? Yeah, would you feel offended if somebody say like
Yes.
because you're
not as offended because
Yeah.
It's not as bad, but it's still like,
You know.
really?
white people. But I would be
It's not
offended,
the
yes,
same.
if someone is like, I like you because you're Mnyamwezi or you're
I
child.
know,
But
I
it's
know,
context.
I don't I like Anyamwezi girls. Like,
Yeah. No,
that
that bothers
sounds
me.
but
Because they got the shape or something like that.
yeah, maybe like
But it's
Anyamwezi
still-
have the shit. I don't know. Like maybe that's some feature that usually. Mfano,
Yeah, I heard a lot about higher girls.
Mpare na Mchaga. Usually they're lighter kidogo.
Yeah.
Maybe like napenda pare because they're lighter.
That's
Is that like because I've
Some
said that
people do
before.
that.
When I'm
Some people do
But
that.
I've not
it.
told somebody who's power. Just
Some
like,
people
like
do
how
that.
you feel?
Yeah.
no, I was like,
Yeah,
no.
offended by that. to
Yeah,
be
I'm
honest
like
with you
Wapare,
guys.
they're
Once
a
you
lighter.
broke it
I'm
down
like,
like that.
Weird.
no, I don't like Wapare because they're lighter. I'm
You're
just saying
liking
it's
that
like,
idea,
You don't
like
feel
you
Yeah.
like that
With
concept of.
being like, no,
because
no, no,
then
no,
it's
no,
like
no.
you
Again,
like
you're
because-
making
I mean,
it
You're making it
fetish.
about
but
like
I think also it's like
I
about
don't
you know
like it, but I'm just
identifying
saying,
It's a
our
preference.
culture
Seeing
also.
something like,
Like I don't know, I've had
you're
many
like,
guys who
something
are
which
like
is
you
there.
know, like I
so
really
kama
I
mtu mwana
first got attracted to you
Candice
and
na
really
uliza,
liked
"Wewe
you
ni
because of
Mpare?"
like
Oh,
Uzanzibari or like the way I say certain things and that made them you know realize that I'm Zanzibari and then like they're just like fascinated with the culture and
that's
that
a
was like a
different
pull
thing.
and I no but they said that and I was like fine.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
no,
yes.
no, but that's a different thing. I think Uzanzibari is different from
Black, like
Pare, light skin, and which is different from
Because now we're going
I
to
like
whole
black
other
girls.
territory.
You know, because
Yeah.
everything is context
Yeah.
based. There was a context for that.
Yeah.
That whole
And
I
mbona
like
wambia
this
huyu
race.
about nini about kama
Yeah.
Wapare being like a
Wapare,
certain
yeah,
way
but it
Wanyamwezi
was, I
being
guess
a
it was
certain
a
way.
side
Yeah.
question. I was
Yeah.
trying to see if it's the same,
It's
but
not
it's
the
not.
same.
It's not
It's
the
not
same.
the
I think,
same,
yeah.
It's not the same.
Race is a touchy subject.
Race
It
is very
is.
touchy.
And what if, for instance, I read a bunch of articles on BuzzFeed after Trump where like a bunch of black people, I mean, and people in interracial relationships were breaking up because they found out that their spouse voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Whose
know a few of
values
those.
don't
Yeah.
reflect.
Yeah.
Not just
My
breaking
people-
up. There's some who divorced, like
Shut
an
up.
actual divorce.
Yeah.
Like,
Nah,
many of
those
them.
guys
Yeah,
are
they
fine to get
divorced.
divorced. No way I'm breaking
That
up
was
with
the
someone
trigger.
I love because
Yes.
of.
I
Yes,
would.
they
I would
did.
break
No,
up
no,
with
it
you.
changes everything. Like,
They
I
you
would
voted
break up with
betrayed.
you.
for
It
I would.
Trump, like,
changes.
that
I think
changes
it's more
everything.
than. I think it's like.
Because it's
But you already know the
values.
kind of person you're with.
Oh,
like-
clearly they
That's
didn't.
the point.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
Yeah,
They
but-
didn't know.
I guess they didn't know, because
They
like,
didn't
know.
if
She
you're
was
black,
already ready
let's
to
say,
go.
yeah, I met if you
No, I
feel
agree
like
with
go,
Melissa in the sense that I wouldn't
I would not-
divorce
Yeah,
somebody.
Divorce
Because they
or
No,
voted
a
for
lot of
Trump.
people who
I
voted
know.
for Trump seem like normal people.
Person I
Oh,
date.
I
It's
would
not
already
just
know
so-
them. This
you
is
might
the kind
think-
of person. Oh yeah, that's true. What
But
you're
a lot of them
saying.
were surprising. They were
normal
like liberals.
liberals.
That means you
really
don't
College
know.
educated
People.
white liberals. Also
I'd probably.
voted for
I don't- but I
but
feel
So-
like that-
Or
It's
you
not
might,
just
my
like-
rights are not as important as your own
Exactly.
political
It's just
desire.
dismissing
But
how
also there's
I
some
feel.
people.
But, okay.
This is a wrap.
This is a white
I would
worst
definitely
case scenario.
divorce her.
Oh God.
It's a story, but it's a worst case scenario.